like we do now. It's repeat business. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
promotions that run in the middle of the night and do a show and get a payday, and you never hear from them again. You don't do nothing but kill the town. And
Yep.
usually it's because they can't come back because they may have drawn 100 people this show, but half of them walked out during the middle of the second or third match, and they ain't going to come back the next time. So we used to say they were a band of gypsies, and they run in the middle of the night, steal a show, and be gone.
Right.
Where we come, I want to make sure that the organization we're with is happy. I tell them all when I get called about a show, I can only lead the horse to the water. I can't make him drink it. If you listen to what I'm telling you how to promote the show and go out and push your tickets, you'll be successful. You know, we're doing the show for the Shriners. That's going to be another one on the bucket list because you guys haven't been in the temple, but I'm telling you, it's a beautiful building, and I'm excited about that. So that will be another one I'll put on that list of what I call unique venues.
Well, since you brought it up, I mean, let's just go at it. So we're back at the Belleville. That particular night,
Repeat what you said. You cut out.
Oh, our next show is March 11th, Belclair Fairgrounds. So, I mean, you guys can get your tickets now or just go to the SICW.org.
Nope, we got that basically set up for just the May 13th right now.
Okay.
So they'll get them at the door like they always do.
Okay.
And that's the thing. I don't get too excited about advanced ticket sales because, you know, it's not like your big concerts where people want to buy them tickets to make sure they got them. You know, wrestling fans usually buy them at the door. Yeah. You know, now the May 13th, we're seeing a big response on the because there's a package they can go in and buy, and that's the only way we're going to get them. You know.
Okay, so we got
a big event going to.
Right, yeah, and I'm trying to get there. So March 11th, Belclair Fairgrounds. March 25th, East St. Louis at the Shriners. And we got 2 special guests that night. So Bob Orton Jr. is going to be there, and Tony Atlas is going to be there. And, you know, just because it's at the Shriners, it's not a private event. Everyone can come to it. It's got an early bell time. I think that one's, 4 or 5?
Doors open at 4, bell time's at 5. You want me to tell you who you're going against that night or that day?
Sure.
Hot off the press, buddy.
Your little prep time there.
I think I got it here. On March the 25th. I don't know if I can tell you that or not.
Teaser.
You will be against Big Joe Helms.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hey,
I got some inside stuff on him.
You're not going to be there.
I'm going to be there for the first one.
I was told you weren't going to be there.
No, that was the one where I could be in the first match or two, and then I have to go host a trivia night for the Little Devils.
Okay, well, I'll have to look at that because I was told tonight by a good source. Well, I thought he was a good source. Sounds like he fell down on the.
Well, at first I wasn't going to be there, and then when I found out it was an early bell time, it's like, ooh, I can swing both.
Okay, I'll send that message out tonight when I get off of here.
It's going to be a busy day. I'm the coach for the Belleville Little Devils wrestling team. We're hosting our wrestling banquet during the day.
Because you
couldn't
be
there set up for trivia night. What's that?
You can't be there on the 11th either, right?
No, I will be at state. Hopefully,
that's what I heard.
After this weekend, well, I'll know for sure. My son should make it to state. But if we have any other wrestlers go too, so I'm going to host the banquet that day. Set up trivia night. Go over wrestle in East St. Louis, and then come back and host trivia night. It's going to be a busy day.
Well, I'll send a message to the booker tonight and say, hey, get this corrected here. But I'm looking forward to. We'll see if that lariat is successful against the big guy.
Yeah.
I've wrestled Helms a couple times. He is a tough SOB.
Yeah. So.
Well, I've besides him coming to SICW, I've also gone to his territory recently. So I've been able to see him and see what he's capable of, and I think I got some tricks up my sleeve that I can pull off. But again, March 11th, Belclair, March 25th, East St. Louis, back at Belclair, April the 8th, and then May 13th, the big show. At the Aviator in St. Louis, over 30 legends. If there's one thing you get out of our podcast, I always talk about listening to the legends. And I am just going to be, how you say you're a kid in the candy store. That day, I'm going to be a kid in the candy store because I'm going to be, over 30 legends. I can listen to road stories and behind the scenes stories. And you're going to have a Q&A with most of them. You're going to have the Hall of Fame speeches going, and your Hall of Fame induction of J.J. Dillon is that night. Having JBL induct, oh my God, now I'm having a relapse.
Jerry Briscoe.
Yeah, Jerry Briscoe. It is crazy. It's like my 70s, 80 kid inner side is going to just come out that night. It's going to be great. But yeah, I heard a little bird has told me that the packages with the front row, the second row seats are going really fast. Is there any of them left?
Yeah, there's a few left, and like I said, that's the benefit of people being able to go to SICW.org. They can pick their package that they want, and we've kept this as reasonable as possible because I want it to be fan friendly. Darla Staggs, our good friend, her and I did a podcast earlier this evening, and we talked about that. She brought that up. That some of these fan fest start off at $150, $175 for a day just to get in, and then you buy your autographs and stuff. But this I think is pretty reasonable. I never ever have or never will gouge the fans because people go out and work hard for their money, and
Right.
And I think we have to take that into consideration. So, I want people to come have a good time. I want them to get as many autographs as they can. And I think we've started promoting this far enough out that people can save and kind of structure their money. And that's why we've kind of systematically threw these legends out as I got them booked. This isn't an easy process, whatever some people may think.
It's not.
Man, I tell you,
You make it look so easy, Herb.
some of these guys are, running them down, and then, I have to twist their arm a little bit. But I talked about it earlier tonight on the podcast. The guy that really, they all are good friends, but the guy that stuck out the most is when he started seeing me post this guy and that guy, was Ted DiBiase. He called me up. I was sitting at home one evening, posting some things like I try to get to do every now and then. And my phone rang and it was his number. And he said, "Hey, when are you going to call me?" And I said, did I miss a message from you or what, He said, "No." He said, "Herb," he said, "you do remember that without St. Louis, there was no Ted DiBiase and there was no $1 Million Man because St. Louis is what got my career started." So, right. That really touched me because, here's the guy that I saw his first match ever in St. Louis. I was there. And then I watched his career blossom from there. And he's been in many times for us. But for him to pick up the phone and call me, I thought, how neat that is,
Right.
The other day I was running between meetings, and in about an hour's time on the road, I got Ronnie Garvin calling me. I got Ricky Steamboat calling me. And I'm thinking, I'm living in a nice world here where I've made these friends, and they're all talking about, hey, can we come in and help? So I think that says a lot again for what you guys have helped build. Um, there's no other promotion out there that can say that they're getting those type of calls. Um,
Right.
I got to say, people from New Breed Wrestling, Scotty Z, good friend, is helping put this together. Pat, the Searcher, is going to be bringing somebody in. Troy Peterson from Impact Pro Wrestling is working on bringing somebody in. So, I mean, as I said earlier on in this conversation, we'll work with those who want to work with us. And when I say my phone is ringing every day, I mean, everybody wanting to come and be a part of the battle royal.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm going to take care of those who take care of us. Nothing
Keep
personal.
bringing them in, because then when I'm the first back-to-back champ, with that cup, it'll be even bigger.
Nothing against anybody personal, but I've got to. I had to tell one individual that you haven't been in before. Why you want to come in now? Well, they know if I bring them in and put them in a match or in a battle royal, then they're going to be there rubbing elbows with. I think we'll be at right about 40 legends when it's all said and done. I still got about 3 possibilities of people that's called me, and but the logistics of you got to air get their air flights, and then you got to coordinate who's going to pick who up, and then you got to worry about after it's over with the next day or whenever they got to leave town, and
Right, because they're not leaving in the same. They're not going to the same place.
no, I can't put them all on a bus and say, hey, you don't leave until 6 o'clock tonight, but it's 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm dropping you off at the airport. That don't work.
Right.
These guys don't do that. So that's the logistical part that you have to do. Not only that, we got vendors that are going to set up tables. So we're in the process of getting that all put together, and then I get people calling saying, well, wait a minute, you've got me selling this, and now you got somebody else selling the same thing. Well, you all knew that. I mean, there's nobody got a market on this thing. It's come in and keep your price reasonable, and now if you come in and try to gouge the fans, then you'll know you were wrong when you leave there that night, because you won't have no money. You got to come in and be reasonable. And I told another promoter. He called me and said, well, why are you so cheap on your prices? Why aren't you? Because I'm not charging these other vendors to bring some of these guys in. Most of them charge, money to, hey, come in and set your table up, and you charge them. I want them to come. I want these guys to make money. Because hypothetically, this would be my last year, I'd like to see somebody keep this on as a tradition like they're doing in these other parts of the country. Yeah. But you come in here and you try to gouge the fans, then nobody's going to come back. So, and that's why I told Nick. I mean, Nick is doing a great job, and him and Brian, they keep telling me I got to have a bigger poster if I keep putting names on it. So,
yeah.
But so you're sitting there talking about all these phone calls. Like, you have to have the coolest contact list in your phone ever.
It is. Well, it's, in the day, we used to call it the black book. Everybody had a black book, and Jim knows, I mean, I don't leave home without it. It's right there. Oh, I've told.
We need to get that Rolodex.
I've told certain people, if something happens to me, make sure you get that book.
There was one day I was over at his house, and he could not find that black book. And time stood still until that black book was found.
Yeah.
You couldn't leave the house. It was like, I'm surprised he wasn't patting some people down.
Yeah. Well, and the problem, it's not so bad with the older legends. They don't change numbers a lot. I mean, they've got the same numbers for years and years and years. But some of the in-between guys have a tendency to change numbers. And then you got to get on the phone and start calling this guy to get to another guy, to get to another guy, to get that phone number. And then when I
Right.
get the phone, I say, did you forget to tell me your new number? Oh, yeah. And the oldest excuse is, oh, well, I had got a new phone and the numbers didn't transfer over. Well, yeah, okay, I hear you. But, John Nord, I hadn't seen John Nord in 37 years, I think it was, until last year up at the Iowa convention. And there's a guy that's had a lot of issues over the years, I'll say. But one of the most down-to-earth guys that I've ever worked with. And when I walked across that hall of the Sullivan Convention Center, because I didn't even know he was going to be there. Jim Ross was there, and Trish Stratus was there, and a lot of the guys. And I was walking across, and he was over in the corner of the room. And Barbara Goodish met me halfway, and I walked up to her, and she said, hey, they tell me John Nord's there, and she had never met him before. She'd heard a lot about him from Frank. And I said, yeah, he's over there in the corner. So he had a line of people at his table signing autographs with him. And I just kind of stood back there, and he had his glasses on. And we stood there 10 minutes while he was signing these autographs. And he looked down over them glasses, and he looked at me, and he said, Herb Simmons. Now, I haven't seen him in 37 years. And I said, you don't remember me? He said, I remember the night. He said, I don't know what town it was, but he said, I know we were out on a football field and it started raining. And it was the Dupo High School. And he said, I'll never forget, because when we got back to the track room that we dressed out in, you come in and wanted to know why the hell we didn't come in out of the rain. He said, that was the most stupidest thing I ever heard a promoter ask us. He said, we're out there, the stands are full, the seats around the ring are full. What do you want me and Frank to do? Just quit wrestling and say, oh, we can't get wet? So I thought that was pretty cool, But I was young and dumb. But after 37 years, and he remembered me. And, of course, then I introduced him to Barbara, and he got tears in his eyes because he'd heard so much about Barbara and Frank. And I did the podcast or an interview with him the other day. I don't know if you see it or not, but
I've seen it. Mm-hmm.
He talks about, how great it was to come in and work for us, that Frank put us over like $1 million. And, I remember when Frank called Larry and I said, I got this guy, he's big and he may be tough, maybe as tough as me, but he said, I think we can do some, and we did business with him. So,
yeah.
But, there was guys out there that are like that, And, Greg Gagne, I hadn't seen Greg since 2012 when we had him at the St. Charles Convention Center. And, as soon as I called him, when do you need me, So, and like I said, just, you got to wait and get the airfares as cheap as you can get them, because it's all about the bottom line. And now that you guys check the airfares, but boy, oh boy, there's no such thing as cheap fares anymore.
Yeah, I was actually looking at them today because I wanted to make sure I had all the dates that I needed to have for this year down packed before, I accepted any other new dates. And I wanted to make sure that I had the Cauliflower Alley dates down. And so just out of the whim, I just was checking around. I was like, wow, even to Vegas, the prices are up there. It's kind of crazy now.
So are you guys going to Vegas this year, you think?
Oh, absolutely. I'll be there every year.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll try to drag Nate down there because I think Nate will have a blast down there.
Well,
But
Jim, I'll talk to you off of the air. I probably I won't be going, but I'll talk to you off the air.
oh wow,
Yeah, there's some developments taking place there, and but I'll let you know. And I'm not telling you that to change you guys. I want you guys to go and have a good time, but I'm just not
tickled about it.
Yeah, so it's a story for another time, but
There you go.
yeah.
Save it for our podcast so we can put it out first.
Well, if I was gonna, in fact, some people asked me to hold off on what I'm gonna do, and so I told them I would. So, but that's like I said, if we had 3 or 4 more guys to the poster, you know, like I said, I've had a couple other promotions call me and say, "Hey, you got room for so and so?" And I said, "Yeah, you know." Somebody wanted to bring a one-man gang in, and we're waiting to hear on him. And you know, we're trying to tie in as much as the St. Louis connection as we can. I'd like to get maybe Baron von Raschke to come in. I think he'd be a perfect tie, especially with Briscoe going into the Hall of Fame, and you know,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, how cool is it to get JBL to come in and do that induction? You
Right.
know, you know,
Yeah.
and then Teddy Long and Mac is going to be there doing their podcast. I think that's going to be fun.
Well, just from one Texan with the Laird as a finisher, you know, I'm going to have JBL and Stan Hansen there. I mean,
That's a photo op there, man.
right. I mean, my game has got to be up there that night, you know, because you haven't announced what's going on besides the Bruiser Brody Battle Royal.
Like I said, I've only threw a few names out there. Like I said, yeah, I'll be honest with you. If I put everybody's name out there that has called me, we'd be at a 30-man battle royal. I've kept track of how many people's called me, and you know the ring just won't hold that many people. It would, but it wouldn't be no fun.
Well, here's an idea. You can use it if you want to. 2 battle royals, 2 winners. Both winners have a match. There we go.
Say,
Yeah.
Tony used to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like the double ring battle royal, you know, that we had.
Yeah.
And, but we got to get out of there sometime that night, guys. That's the problem, you know. We did announce New Breed is put a match on there. Their title will be up for a grab, and that's out of respect for Scotty Z. You know, he's our friend. He works with us, and he's helping me with this. So
I totally agree.
I wasn't going to tell him no, but you know, there's a good chance that there'll be a females match also. So I haven't even announced the card yet, and
You're right.
Really, and the amazing part of that is nobody's asking that question of, well, who's wrestling? They're all worried about the fan fest, you know. So,
Yeah.
but I think as we get closer and we start putting the names out there in the matches, that's why I had a meeting tonight, and you know, you never know. Maybe some of these guys on this Legends list will be in action.
Right. That'll be great. It'll be an honor.
Yeah, you know, guys like Bushwhacker Luke Williams that can still get out there and mix it up, and Bob Orton, and you know, if they come to the match on March 25th, they'll see Bob Orton and Tony Atlas in action in the ring.
Oh, are they going to be in action?
Sure. You want me to tell you who they're going to go against?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Bobby D and the Big Texan.
No.
No, they're going against. Let's see. Oh, the LA Hustlers.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
They won't even
Well-
be champions by that time.
Wow, they're going to lose on the 11th.
Yeah.
That's correct. You know, the Night Train, Gary Jackson and I will be getting those belts back.
Yeah. You better. You guys let me down on last month.
Hey,
I saw one of the hustlers wasn't too happy about there being 2 refs to watch it either.
Oh no.
I saw him put something on Herb's page.
Yeah. They think I'm a bad guy. So, but you know, and
well, I think
hey Jim, don't forget. You know, you mentioned having Stan there and JBL, but you also got Black Bart going to be there.
yeah.
And if you've done any research on Black Bart, I know you do. You're a researcher.
Yep. And I was telling you the story about Black Bart because I love to listen to podcasts. I love to hear shoot videos, and it didn't click on me until I started doing more research. But I was listening to this shoot video, and it was probably a good 2-hour video, and I was listening to it, and then you know went a different direction, and then when you guys were bringing up his name again, so I went back. I was like, oh, this is the same guy I was just listening to 2 months ago and I couldn't believe it because I didn't put the two to two together. But yeah, that's my favorite thing to do is to find that legend and then find out all the history about him. It's I don't know what to compare it to, but I just love to find the little details, and bring that back and bring that new life and give it to the newer generation. Because most of the people that are wrestling nowadays, one, they don't have training like we did in the olden days. Because I bring this up a lot in the podcast and in the training. Back then, their goal was to get you out of the business because they wanted to see if you had the heart and to get your ass handed to you and come back the next day for round 2, round 3, and you hear stories, a lot of people don't like Hogan, but when they broke his ankle and a couple months after he healed, he come back and they were like, okay, well, I guess since we did that to him and he come back, he might be good for this business or want to be in this business. But that was the training back in those days,
Right.
And now they don't. A lot of companies, I try to put a little here and there into Ace Academy, but the training isn't like that anymore around the business.
No.
They'll let anyone in. I've heard some promoters say, I can train any idiot. It is just crazy to me. It's I remember Hell Week lasting for a year. It's just crazy. Hell Week. What is Hell Week? But
yeah. Speaking of the videos, did you see the one Tugboat did?
yes.
Yeah, another good one. A guy that and I didn't ever get to do a lot of work with him at all, hardly, but he put us over like $1 million too. Just he's a fan. He says, but to be able to come in and be something a part of this is something good. And Buff Bagwell, buff the stuff. Who was it? I think Bobby like buffs the stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, I just reposted it today.
Yeah.
His interview.
Well, yeah, we posted it. Well, yeah, I think.
Well,
I posted all of them.
We were supposed to have him in last year, if you remember, and then he actually double booked himself, and he called and said, "Man, Herb, I messed up, and what can we do?" And of course, Herb, being the guy he is, I let him out of the booking, and he said, "I'll make it up to you." So and he did, But then you talk, the Brooklyn Brawler, we all remember him, and Barry Horowitz and Rick McCord. Rick's always out in Vegas with us, and he shows up in Iowa, and he was in the Kansas City group for a long time and done some work in St. Louis, and just a great guy. Bobby Fulton be there, and Virgil's going to be there.
That's why I think it's a good mixture, because you got people who was addicted to the WWF, and then you got people that were just strictly watching AWA or NWA. You got a great mixture, I think. And you even got some newer guys, like JBL and Enzo.
Yeah.
Victoria. Victoria. I mean, it's a good mixture of any type of wrestling that you liked back then.
Yeah, and WCW guy.
Yeah, okay. Bobby's a new guy. WCW.
Yeah. Well, Jim, and you was a couple of weeks ago when we went down to Arkansas, and James Beard was there doing the seminar. The respect he showed us when we walked in the building. He's sitting there with quite a few people in that seminar, and right away he recognized that you and Attila and me, and in fact asked us some questions. So it always makes you feel good when you go out and people want to help. They want you to kind of put your 2 cents in. And I think we did that night, you know.
Yeah, and I've already told this story, but it's to me it's worth telling again. You know, we got there towards the tail end of that seminar, and I think we listened to the best part of it because one of the rookies in the seminar asked him, what's the best match that you ever wrestled in? I mean, reffed in the main event, and he goes, it doesn't have to be a main event. Yeah, I can look at the card and look at the wrestlers and tell you, in my eyes, who the main event is going to be. And it might be the third or the fourth match.
Yeah.
And then being on the card and him coming up to me, because he came up to me first and asked me what match I was. And I told him, and he looked and then looked to see if he was rough in that match, and he wasn't. And so then he told the promoter, hey, scratch this guy off, scratch me off the main, put me over here. And he goes, I got your match now. And, just hearing him say that to all the people that were there for that seminar, and then to physically see it happen in front of your eyes, and it's about you and the other opponent you got that he's doing that to for. I mean, it was just crazy.
Well,
And you didn't disappoint either.
No,
No.
and that's what I mean. And Jason Jones, the promoter, great friend that had us down there. We work with him, and he's been up here and been on our TV for us. He runs a tight ship, and after that seminar was over with, all of those young students, I was standing over in the corner, just kind of minding my own business, my son and I, and they all come over, polite, shook my hand, and said, "Hey, we watch what SICW does. We hope we can get up there someday with us, And of course, I told him, I said, "Well, when Jason gives you the okay, give me a call, And again, I think that speaks quality of what the SICW logo stands for. Then they see you guys go out there and put on the match that you guys did. I mean, you could hear them back there talking about it,
Yeah.
And it wasn't nothing fancy. It was just hard, old school. Let's go out there and tear it up. And then you got James Beard, one of the best referees ever, out there officiating it. I mean, it was a main event, could be in any arena.
The funny thing is on my socials, I try to add people, if they're trying to befriend me on Facebook or, TikTok or anything like that, I do give it a little look-see just to see if it's like a wrestling fan or if it's a relative that I haven't seen in a while. And a lot of wrestling fans have been trying to add me, and so I would, click on them, and sure, that way, because I figure if I have something to support, like SICW, if it's a flyer or if it's about May 13th, more the merrier. More fans that I have contact with, the more they can see it. But after that show, I accepted a few fans, and then it was fans from down there, and they were expecting me to come down there more. And they, are you going to be down here this Saturday? I was like, well, I don't know. It might have been just a one-shot deal, but it just amazed me that it just took one match down there, and all of a sudden they want us down there, and
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, next time you make that trip, you're going to have to let me know so I can carpool with you.
There you go.
Myself.
And that's what we're doing. We talked earlier about Bert Prentice, my late friend, that was just in the business. He was labeled the corny because he could go out and work the crowd, and he did, and very successful. Now, there's a guy that ran 4 or 5 shows a week, and they were in small towns, but I mean, he had a market on it. And he went out there and he made it, and that was his living. That's what he did. And when he called me and told me he was in bad health and asked if I would start coming down and helping him, that's how I started going down there. And of course, then I took Attila and I took Gary down there once, and then Travis Cook went, and Flash Flanagan. But, our goal was to start the territorials as much back as we could. Him being all through Tennessee, Jackson, Henderson, places like that. And then we had Scotty Z in Missouri, Greg Anthony running Dyersburg, and then going up to Iowa with Troy Peterson and Austin Bayless. There was, ACW people. There was 7 or 8 of those promotions that was far enough away that we could have set up that little promotional thing, and then Bert passed away. That kind of put a stop on that. But, there's still a few of us out there that, of course, I'm old, and I'm trying to tell these younger promoters that, it can be done. It won't ever be done to the way it was back when there was 20, 30 promotions running around in the country. And you don't need that. You don't need all that, because the dynamics and everything is everybody's changed in life. You guys are working full-time jobs. You can't get off to drive to wherever it may be 3-4 nights a week. But, there is enough of those promotions that you could be busy every weekend out of the month if you want it to be.
Yeah.
And what the good part about that is if you had 5 or 6 promotions that could continue to work together, and because they don't have the ego problems, you may not want to work 4 or 5 weekends in a row, but you'd have enough pool of talent that, you say, hey, I can't work this weekend. Okay, then you haven't interfered with the card, because we could draw from the Tennessee, or we could draw from the Southern Missouri, or from up north. And that's how it was done. But when you have egos to get in your way, and you got other people from the outside trying to stop that, that's what happens. And I think that if just a few of these other promoters, because they're all younger guys, that they can pick up on it and do it, I think it would work. I get the same question asked about, well, why doesn't Wrestling at the Chase come back? It was so popular. And that's a real simple answer there, because the people who made Wrestling at the Chase aren't with us any longer.
Right.
The Sam Muchnicks, the Luthezes, the Fritz von Erichs, the Gene Kaniskis. Now, you can go in there and run shows, but it will never be Wrestling at the Chase, because you don't have the talent.
I think that's, unfortunately, I think the NWA, the new NWA, has kind of proven that, because they've been here the last 2 years. And, I tell you, they drew a lot of excitement the first year, because no one's wrestled in there. And to bring back the NWA, I think it drew a lot of excitement. But if you're only going to hit us once a year, I don't think you're going to build the fan base back. You're not. And this is such a hotbed for wrestling. You would think he would be hitting us nonstop, once a month, trying to build up that NWA, that whole territory system way. But he's not doing it,
Or at least a couple times a year.
So let me ask you this: you were at both of those, weren't you? NWA 73.
I was not. I was only at last year's, because I had prior wrestling bookings the previous year.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I was at both of them. But doesn't it seem amazing that both of those shows compares nowhere to what we're doing?
Right.
And it's only because of one reason: lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I had that conversation with William numerous times when we were negotiating, and I probably shot myself in the foot, because on the one phone conference call I told him the one day with my lawyer's office, I said, no disrespect, but if you don't know what those 3 letters stood for, NWA, then you don't know what the business was. You got to know what those letters meant to this area.
And the funny thing is, I wouldn't even say funny thing, I heard Billy on a podcast say that same thing, that someone, he didn't mention you, but I knew it was you, because who else would say it? But, he said it on the podcast that someone had brought it up to him about him only owning the 3 letters because he has no history. But then he goes, but that's the history. We need to build the future. So you can tell right away he didn't get it.
He didn't know.
Well,
He
and
still
again,
doesn't get it.
I agree. He's got to look for the future. But you get to the future by knowing what was in the past.
Right.
And it's no disrespect to him, but when you allow people to get in your ear, and that's what he did, he's made the mistake so many other promoters have made. It's okay to surround yourself with people that are a support group or whatever you want to call them. But a good promoter, a good leader, identifies right away who is the team players, and and he even openly admitted, and I've been told since then that there have been some people give him false information. It's like the tapes. He even made a comment on a podcast that a question was asked to him, well, why don't you have those St. Louis Wrestling at the Chase tapes? And he said, again, didn't mention my name, but he said, well, I've been negotiating with an individual that claims he owns the rights to them, but another individual says that's not quite right, and we've been negotiating. Well, I know who the other individual was. You were with him here a couple of a month or so ago, and nothing personal, but again, I've got the tapes, 99 tenths of the law. I've got the letter from Larry Matisek. I got the letter from Larry Matisek's attorney. I got a letter from Larry Matisek's widow that says that I have full rights to any of it.
Right.
And plus I've got them. Now, you can go out there on the internet and they've been bootlegged because Larry and I took and reproduced 12 volumes of it. And they've been out there for over 20 years now. And I get people telling me, well, why don't you sue people for copyrighting? Well, look, I'm an old man. I ain't got time to worry about all that stuff. All I know is that if people are enjoying it, now, like I told Mr. Corrigan, I'll make you a deal, and I didn't ask for hardly anything other than let me help keep the tradition alive of St. Louis wrestling. Because if I can't do it, I want somebody to tell me who can. I didn't really, the thing that dawned on me one day, and I hadn't thought of this, Bill Apter. We all know who Bill Apter is.
Yep.
He's been with us before. Well known. Bill Apter never gets the credit that he deserves, because if it wouldn't have been for guys like Bill Apter, people on this poster that we're talking about wouldn't have been known, because back in the day before social media, they had cameras. They had cameras that went around all over the country following these guys and put in magazines. And some of these guys, Terry Funk and all those guys, will tell you Bill Apter is what made them guys, because they told the stories, they took the photographs. So, and Bill and I have been friends a long time. And Bill told me one day, he said, Herb, you're the last connection, really died, to the St. Louis office. And I didn't even really think about that. But the more that sunk in, and I've racked my brain, who has the material and who has firsthand knowledge of what took place in St. Louis that kept it so valuable all those years to this day? And that's me. And I'm not bragging about it. That's fact. I just showed you. I got facts here. I got the book.
Should brag about it. That's a big one.
So I don't have to brag about that. Facts are facts. And that's all I told Billy. Hey, I'm not asking for much. Just you're going into the chorusing room. That's where it was at, until it moved out of there into the studio. But you got to know how it got there. You got to know and tell that story. And that the first 73 that he came in, who did he bring in?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the last time he brought in J.J. Dillon and Barry Windham, two of the greatest. Haku sat out there in the audience with me, and he didn't even announce him being there. Now you got a WWE legend, a WCW legend show that night. Your relation is on the card, Tyrus, his relation, and you don't even announce him. You know, when he had Ric Flair there, Ric Flair got in the ring, and the only thing he said about Sam Muchnick was, "Oh, he was a good payoff man." Now, if that's all you can say about Sam Muchnick, I'm sorry. Rick is another one of the greats of all times, but he's at the point of his life where it's all about Rick as it was back in the day. But
Yeah.
that whole the '73 NWA and in the I right here, what I'm putting together right here, and I got people helping me put together, is going to draw more people, I hope, than both the '73 and '74 did together.
Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind that it is, because like we've talked in previous conversations, you got people coming in from Canada. You got people coming in from Texas, fans, not wrestlers, but fans coming in from, Canada. I mean, you didn't hear any of those stories from NWA,
Well, and again, it would have been so easy. In fact, I tried telling people in his organization, that first show that they came back in NWA '73, that was the show to bring Dory Funk Jr. in, Jerry Briscoe, Baron von Raschke.
Right.
That would have been the show, because all three of those men had ties to wrestling at the Chase. Sure, Ric Flair
And
did.
it
But
probably would have saved them a bunch of money too.
sure it would have. And you wouldn't have had to worry about them. But
Right.
I didn't know what I was talking about. Um, J.J. Dillon, Barry Windham, great guys, love them both. Uh, he let him get in the ring, and and of course, Barry wasn't feeling good, but still in all, he got him up in the ring, and he let him in the ring for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
There was no connection.
Now you got a guy like J.J. Dillon that, um, started off in the business as a wrestler, did a lot of work in the Kansas City area, all over, come to St. Louis, worked with all the greats, and then later on ate dinner with Vince McMahon every Sunday evening for several years. Every Sunday evening, didn't miss it. And the guy knows everybody, everything in the business, done everything, and you let him get up there, wave, and say, "Hi, how you doing? I'm here. Good to see you."
Yeah.
On May 13th of 2023, I'm honored. I was honored when his daughter asked me to induct her father into the Hall of Fame. I thought that they'd, maybe ask Jerry to do him because they're such good friends, one of these other guys. But when she asked me to do it, I guarantee you, if the good Lord allows me to be there, he'll get the accolades that he deserves, and so will Jerry Briscoe, because they deserve it.
Yeah.
It's because of guys like them that we're allowed to sit here tonight and talk about it. But it's not going to be just, "Hey, come on up in here, JJ, and take your plaque and go back and sit down." I want the fans there, whether it's 10 fans there, or whether it's a couple hundred fans there in that ballroom. I'm going to give the man the induction that I think he deserves, and and I think that we owe it to him. I really do.
Oh yeah.
Same way with Darla Staggs. When she found out, we weren't going to tell her that she was getting the Sam Muchnick Award, because I thought, we'll keep it a surprise. But then I got to thinking, what if something happens that she just says, "Oh, I can't make it," and when Andy Warner's one, after I posted her picture that morning, he called her and said, "What are you doing? What's your picture doing out there?" And she said, "What are you talking about? You got other things to do instead of putting phony stuff out there like that." And then he said, "I'm telling you, Herb put that out there." Then she called me and she broke down on the phone, because, there's a girl that attended her first wrestling match in 1959 in the arms of her dad, and has been a fan ever since. Knows everybody on the CAC board, and just loved by everybody. So for her to get the Sam Muchnick Award this year, I think it's the right thing to do. Her whole
Yeah.
family, who really aren't wrestling fans, her sisters, her aunts, her uncles, they're all, and she deserves that. She deserves that. You know, she's got fans from around the country that's coming to see her get her induction. And I didn't put her in there just to have more fans. I did it because she has been a true blue wrestling fan. Like I said, her dad held her in her arms when Pat O'Connor beat Dick Hutton for the title in 1959. He ran around the ring, and her mom said, "What the hell are you doing?" Pat O'Connor won, and he's holding Darla in his arms. So if that's not a fan, I don't know what is. You know, but
Yeah.
so I'm excited about her, and you know, and then JJ's daughter coming, and Barbara coming. Of course, Barbara's there every year for me.
Oh yeah.
She told me the story. We did the podcast last night, and she said Herb always tries to get me involved in the match. I got to watch him sometimes. So I've had her use the chair. I've had her use the trash can.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, no, I think it's going to be great. And with the job that I know you guys are going to go out there and do, this will be something I think that people will be talking about for some time down the road. I mean, it's already, I'm telling you, wherever I go, people are talking about it just from the social media. And like I said, we haven't announced the show. Today was the first radio show I did. Um, and I've already got some TV coverage lined up for it as we get closer.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
a question I was going to ask you. What about the local TV, the news channels? Are they going to be doing anything?
yeah, I've already got commitments out of Frank Cusimano because Frank helped us back in the day when Larry and I did the wrestling at the Chase volumes that we reproduced. He gave us a big plug there. People at Channel 4 News have pretty well committed to going to be doing something as we get closer.
That's cool.
I talked to John Perchbarn, who's a good friend of ours. In fact, John used to come to our shows. I used to use him a couple times as um, ring announcer. But I know you've seen in the magazines the picture of Brody on the racetrack with the jockey on his back.
Yeah.
John Perchbarn was he covered that story for us, and that was actually Bruiser Brody's idea. He was always in for wanting to do something different. You know, you've seen the picture of him up on the front of the marquee at the St. Louis Arena, where he's got the word wrestling spelled out, and he's holding the T up. And then they did the promo of him holding the lady who Angie Warner was her name. She actually was at Larry's funeral. She was dressed up in the gown like the movie King Kong, Fay Ray. And she tells the story, and I remember I was there. It was so windy up there that the microphone they had clipped to her dress, and it kept picking up so much of the wind, it was distorted. So after about an hour of trying to readjust it and putting it here and putting it here, they actually ended up putting it underneath Frank's beard to block the wind, so it wouldn't pick up all the wind noise. But so it's Frank was always very colorful with that, and we were at the racetrack that day, and he said, "Man, what we got to come up with some photos. You know, what do we do?" And out of the clear blue sky, he said, "Get me a jockey out here." And the jockey came out, and he put him on his back, and we got a horse thoroughbred, and they're actually racing down the backstretch of the. And that picture's been out there for years and years in the wrestling magazines.
But what goes through your mind when he just randomly says, "Get me a jockey"?
I think he's nuts. Yeah. Well, you know, and then I told you earlier, one of the matches I had there at the racetrack was him against Ox Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you guys probably you remember, we had Ox in before, and of course, it was later on. In fact, it was the last time he was here was a month before he passed away. In fact, I thought he died when he was here because we had to go and get security to open the hotel room to check on him because he was supposed to be in the lobby. I had him at the Casino Queen, and I said, you know, I'll be here at this time to pick you up, be in the lobby. And we get there, no Ox. We're calling the phone. He's not answering. Well, and he was a bad diabetic. And Keith Smith had actually picked him up and took him to the hotel for me that day. And Keith told me, he said, man, Ox just ain't feeling good. He said he was going to go in and lay down. I thought, oh, hell, this guy's done laid in there and died on me. And I got a show tonight. What the hell? You can't die on me. So I had to get security. We go in there, and he'd actually fell asleep in a chair and didn't hear the phone ringing. But we had him at the show in 1985, 86 at the racetrack. And the dressing room then was the tack room where the jockeys got dressed at. And you got all the bridles and everything in there, and it's a small area. Of course, jockeys back then are small. They had to be, and then here you got Brody, you got the Giant Assassin, you got Ron Powers, Spike Huber was there, and so we're all in that room. And so this time, and then we had Gypsy Joe and Frank Morrell, those guys. And so the main event comes on, and it's Brody against Ox Baker. And of course, Herb, the way he is, I'm out there, I got a shirt and tie on, and boy, I'm styling and profiling at the racetrack, And I mean, the stands are filled. They got people standing all around the ring, great crowd. And because Ox had actually came in town 2 days early, and we had him there the night before, and he won like $1,600 on a tip that one of the jockeys gave him. And so he was happy about that. Frank didn't get in until that morning, but their match goes on. It's typical Brody match, ends up, I'm standing at ringside by the corner post, and Frank throws Ox out of the ring. And when he comes out of the ring, he reaches up and grabs me by the tie. And he always taped his arms up, and he hauls off and clobbers me in the head. And I thought it was a sledgehammer to hit me. Man, I grabbed a hold of the corner post. I literally saw stars. And so the match goes on, it ends in a DQ. They fight back to the tack room. I'm waddling back to the tack room because I'm thinking, holy crap, man. So I walk in the door, and as I walk in, I hear Ox saying, he said, I don't know who that son of a B.O.'s out there. He said, but I sure clobbered the hell out of whoever that was standing there. And Frank and Larry sitting there, and Frank says, guess what, Oxy? You probably just worked today for free. That was the promoter. And he couldn't, because he's almost blind too. Ox had bad eyesight. He didn't even know it was me. Wow. Frank told him, he said, guess what, Oxy? You probably worked for free today. What do you mean? That was Herb the promoter. Oh my God, no, don't tell me that. Another one of those things I can put in my book. Everybody says I ought to write a book. I said, well, I don't know how to write a book, but I got the name of the book. I'd have the title of it, and they'd say, what's that? I tell them, The Man, the Myth, the Fool. For being in this business, So, but just some of those good times that you don't forget, I still got the tape of Ox when he was in town the last time, when he sat there on ring apron and sang his Hillbilly Heaven song.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are things that if my wife don't burn them up, she'll give them to somebody probably.
I do admit, I agree with you on the full part. Because anyone who's been in the ring, who does what they do to our bodies, to take the bumps, and not even the stupid stuff, just the repeated bumps or the repeated stretching of the different ligaments and arms, the accidents that happen. You are a fool to even want to be a wrestler. I mean, you got to love the business, got to have the heart for the business, but on the other, you're a little nuts. Yeah.
Well, I don't think little is the operative word there.
Right.
The question would be is why do you do it? And it's the answer is simple. You grew up as a fan. It was interesting, and you can do it. What bothers me is the guys that grew up watching it and think they can do it, but they have no idea how to. And we see more and more of that all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and I get in discussions with guys from time to time. I say, I can take you back to the tapes of the 40s and 50s and 60s and guys that were on those shows, there weren't the injuries that you're seeing now. And they say, oh, well, yeah, but those guys weren't doing everything we're doing then. And I say, why don't you listen? Why don't you listen? You know, those guys went out there and knew how to do it. They knew how to take care of one another. It wasn't about all the high spots. So you want to go out there and put your body at risk for what? Back then, those guys were not making great money, but they're making more money than what guys are making nowadays for sure. You know, they're traveling 100 and 200 miles to get from one town to another. They weren't flying. You know, nowadays, you know, Vince and all those guys put them on airplanes and they fly them around. You know, they may be in Chicago today for an afternoon show and jump on an airplane and do a night show in California. But we're going to drive that way. But you know, the guys nowadays just need to be better trained and know how to take care of their bodies. Because when you get to be my age and when those bones start creaking and crackling, and I've never taken the bumps except for when Attila broke my ribs down in Tennessee, and when he shoved me into the ring, and I consider that the only bump I've ever taken. And he felt so bad over that, it was unreal. And Bert Prentice called me every day for 2 weeks after that, wanting to know if I was okay. No, damn, I can't breathe. Cracked my rib. So, but, you know, that happened. So I'm thinking that happened that was an accident. You know, I was doing an interview at ringside, and we had barred them out of the arena, and they come charging back in, and Dennis just comes in, boom, and throws me right into the side of the ring, and I caught it with my rib, my side. Ooh. And, it was a long trip home, believe me. I mean, I'm trying to drive, and, you know, every time oh, my God, I got to go to the hospital, you know. But Bert felt bad about it. Attila felt bad about it. I even got a get well card from Travis Cook.
Wow.
Yeah, go figure. Yeah, so.
Well, he probably did that just to rub it in, though.
He did. You know, yeah. He did. But you know, those are the memories that you cherish and you just love. You know, when you ask about, I think Bobby asked earlier what was some of the highlights of the venues. I mean, there's been a lot of them, but some of them small shows has been just as good. The fans, and Nate got to witness that last month, just the fan interaction. And, you know, I think that, you know, you being there, talking to the fans adds a lot of that to the show too, because the majority of the humans nowadays want to be recognized. You may find a few that don't want to say anything, but look at the ones you talk to. Larry Wolf, you know, Larry will sit there and talk like we are right now if you let him. Great guy, great wrestling fan. You know, the Menders, you know, people who's been following me for over 40 years. That whole family, you know, of course, you know, we went to school together and grew up in the housing projects together and love them dearly. But they're fans. Like I said, there's an older gentleman and his wife comes. They come to the TV tapings. They usually sit in the corner, and now I got them sitting at ringside. You know, they're starting to bring more people with them because they grew up on wrestling at the Chase, and they've told me, man, this is the closest thing that we can remember to what we used to watch every weekend. That says something, you know. I think that says a lot. They come, they have good time. I had one person come up to me last month and say, yeah, I don't know if I like the venue here. I said, well, why don't you like it? And they said, well, I had to park my car way out there. And I announced at the beginning, telling people, you know, that there was a double booking there. And but other than that, one person out of the crowd we had there, and she wasn't really upset. She just said, I'll see, you know. But we had people from down in East Cron Lake come there, which that was my other concern, if they would follow up that far. And they did. So I think the venue speaks for itself. It's easy to find. Everybody knows where the fairgrounds is. And I think it's good. I really do. And then if you notice, we had a good crowd at the TV studio the next day.
Yeah, That was my concern. Well, I mean, I'm sure it was your concern too, but
Yeah, it was.
yeah. But
Yeah. If we can end up with that 30, 40, 50 people on TV, it just makes it look better. I mean, you go back and look at some of the Mid-South TV stuff and any of the other studios, that's about all they had. When Bert used to
right.
do his down there was days he had 20 people at his TV studio. It just adds to the atmosphere,
hmm
but because, you're playing to the TV is what you should be playing for. The little audience there is to try to just bring the audience atmosphere. But I was overly pleased that we had the crowd that showed up for the TV.
Definitely.
One of
Definitely.
the one of the interviews that I wish I was able to put there, the one that I like, I do not know who they were, so they say they watched the podcast as well. So if it's you, let me know on the 11th, and I'll put you back on again. But they were saying one of them had lost their job, but they budgeted out for wrestling. They cut everything out of their life except for wrestling, and that's all they budget for is coming into SICW. And
Well,
I think that said an immense amount of how much they love it.
well, and again, there's another that's a touching thing to say because there's so much wrestling going on in our area. For them to say that we're coming to SICW, that to me speaks quality. They like what the guys in the locker room are giving them because there's no shortage of wrestling in this area.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna
There's
pause you for a second. I had a conversation with an old owner of St. Clair Vol, and he told me, he said back in the day, there's 50 lanes. He said they would be packed all day long, and they would have to work different shifts and have like 3 or 4 different shifts of people to make sure all those lanes were covered. Running food or cleaning the balls or whatever. He said nowadays 9 lanes is what they worry about because so many people there's so many things that people can do nowadays.
Yep.
And I got to bring it back to wrestling because there's so many things you can do. Fairview Heights has got that jump park inside that is all trampolines. You got the pizza place that it's all video games. Besides the bowling alleys, besides the archery and the axe throwing and the mystery rooms, and you have all that stuff, and still they come back for wrestling.
Yeah. And it's, we talk all the time about how wrestling in St. Louis, it was a household name. Wrestling at the Chase, those 4 words. And that's why Ed Wheatley, when we first started working on that book, when he always rephrased, he phrased that as, that was it. And then he talked about the 3-legged stool and how the deal all came about. But when you look at, you will go St. Louis anywhere, go to a restaurant, go here in Illinois, anywhere you want, and just sit around. And all you got to do is be sitting at a table and start talking about wrestling at the Chase. I guarantee you, there will be somebody within earshot that will say something about, oh, I remember Dick the Bruiser, I remember Ric Flair, or Bruiser Brody. Happens all the time. Or walk into one of them places and have a wrestling at the Chase shirt on. Automatically starts a conversation.
Yeah.
It's amazing that, Barbara and I talked last night about, Frank got killed in 1988. He was with us the weekend before in Cahokia, Illinois, at my bar and grill I had. And the way the people remember him, that's what, 37 years of my math, something like that, close to it. And they still remember him. And she gets goosebumps, like she says, when she comes in and the crowd starts that Brody chant or the hush, hush, hush people. And what really gets her is this younger generation that knows what her husband was, because of Google and all the internet stuff. They're able to go on and research that stuff. And when she goes to these fan fests and things like that, young kids who weren't even born back then, say, man, we watched your husband, and man, we wish we could have met him. And it's the same way with wrestling at the Chase. You know,
Yeah.
people may have not lived through it, but their parents or grandparents did. When Larry and I reproduced those wrestling at the Chase tapes, it was unbelievable the amount of them that we sold. And I mean, on Christmas Eve, I was doing like it was a dope deal. I was meeting people on McDonald's parking lots and handing them packages out the window and taking their money, you know. But it was the common thing that we heard the most of was, we want to buy these and show our children what real wrestling was all about. And that was the common thing that we heard about it. You know, when you stop and think, when we first did those, the first 3 volumes was only we had on VHS. I'll never forget that. There was a guy at South Broadway, Scott Cooper. You remember Scott Cooper was doing the video work back then?
Mm-mm.
So Scott was doing the video, and so Larry and I hired him to do those. And we went to his studio, and he put them on VHS. And then he ended up getting a divorce, so we didn't have anybody to do them. And Larry said, well, I got a guy that has a studio, and he used to teach my daughter. He was a coach in volleyball named Charlie Regal. He lived over in Shiloh, Illinois. And so he made contact with him. We go over to his house one night, and we take these tapes in there, and he says, how old are some of these things? And we said, well, the oldest we got is about 1962. He says, oh boy, this is probably going to be sawdust when I open it up. So he opens up the case, takes it out, puts it in his machine, crystal clear. He said, oh my God. He said, somebody hasn't been playing these a lot. Because I'd been on Larry for 10 years to do something with those tapes. And he'd say, nope. He said, I'm going to just leave them in the den. When Kelly gets married, has a family, she'll be able to show them what Grandpa used to do. I mean, sometimes every week, every day, sometimes, Larry, we need to do something with them. People are starving for them. One morning he calls me and says, big boy, you're right. Let's do something. So Charlie, we're sitting there, and he says, and we took the 3 volumes that Scott had done for us on VHS. And I made up the labels that went on the front of them and everything on my computer. Kind of rigged them up, you know. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I'd put a picture of Gene Kaniski on volume 1 and Pat O'Connor on volume 2. And he said, I got to ask you guys a question. And we said, what? He said, why didn't you put these on DVD? And Larry and I looked at one another, and I said, what the hell is DVD? And he reached over on his credenza he had there, and he pulled out this thing, looked like a flying saucer thing or whatever. He said, that's we didn't know what the hell he was talking about. So we had him remaster the first 3 volumes and put them on DVD, and then the rest of them we had put on DVDs. But yeah, the first 3 volumes, and in fact, I still got the 3 of the first original VHSs that we did.
Now, I mean, again, we can talk and talk forever, and there's a lot of things I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to. But I'm going to throw this out. I heard there's a 13. There could be a 13th edition to that.
Yeah, there is a 13th, and Larry and I was working on that, and it's pretty well done. All I got to do, and it's more of the history, kind of like what we said here and done tonight. Larry and he told the stories about Sam and how the wrestling got started in St. Louis with Sam and the feud between him and Thez. And what I want to do eventually is, when he's talking about Sam, I want to go in and put some pictures of Sam when he's talking about Lou. And then, you know, when he's talking about these guys like Kaniski and what part they played, I got to do that kind of work. And it's kind of like the last book that he was writing. He was 1 chapter away from finishing that, and I've got that. I got the original draft of it, and his wife's got a copy of it because she proofread everything. Because, you know, she was a school teacher, and he would always, he'd do 2 or 3 chapters, and he'd send them to me, and I critique it a little bit, because I told him on this one, because the idea behind this last book is going to be the difference between Sam Muchnick and Vince McMahon. And him and I had some heated discussions over that because I knew his relationship with Sam was almost a father-son relationship because Sam, like I said, he started to work for him when he was 16 years old. And Sam molded him into what he turned out to be. Well, then when the split and when Sam retired and Sam wanted Larry to take over, but he couldn't get Geigel and Race and them guys to go along with it. Sam was at an age where, hey, I'm not going to fight no fights. He told Larry, I'll be there if you need me. But that's why Larry started his own promotion. And I've got all of those original tapes that Larry did with the for the months that he was in, just under a year. And they're still on the big TV reels, the double ring battle royal. I've got that on the original TV stuff, tapes. And when Larry went to work for Vince for 10 years, it was the most horriblest 10 years of his life. He hated every day of it. But he was making good money. And I always told him, hey, laugh all the way to the bank,
Right.
And what Vince was doing, his theory was, well, I'd sooner have him on the inside peeing out than on the outside peeing in. And so he worked for him for 10 years. And Larry always, and we joked about it, I'm the one that actually got his pink slip gave to him. Because I told you I was running spot shows for Vince, and we would run different towns throughout Missouri and Illinois, and they would go in on a Sunday with their spot show. And Larry, we booked a show in Collinsville at the high school, and then we did one at Dupo High School, and my wife was on the school board at that time. And these high schools are really particular about their gym floors because of the basketball. They have tournaments and playoffs. And so my wife being on the school board, I had a little in there with that. And so we do a show on a Sunday afternoon. And Larry said, now, look, I'm going to tell you, you got to be careful because they will, about 6 weeks out from the show, they will start calling you at least once, twice a week, wanting to know what the advanced sales are. And if you get to be about a week out from the show, and if you haven't got what we called back then, if you haven't got their nut covered, they'll cancel the show. Well, I'm well known in the area. My wife's on the school board. The last thing I want to do here, we got all this advertisement. Hey, man, high school, we're bringing the smoking guns. Bret Hart's going to be on the card. The Samoans. It's a full blown card. And and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be good for the area. Ticket sales weren't going good for some reason. Don't know why. But Larry taught me how to kind of fudge each week on the amount of tickets were sold. And so they, just like he said, man, about 5-6 weeks out, they're calling me, hey, what's your ticket sales? What's the advance? And so Larry had actually wrote it down and said, well, they came in and they may have broke even on the deal when you figured in everything that they had. And it wasn't about 2 weeks later, Larry got his pink slip because they realized Larry had kind of kept me informed, and they knew we were doing independent shows already. And but Larry always said, "You got me fired." He said, "But it was the greatest thing that ever happened." But because he hated. So back to the book. I knew this, and I could tell by reading this draft. A couple times the chapters would be he was really partial to Sam, and it was just like the devil against Vince. And I said, you worked for Sam and you worked for Vince, and you got to be fair about it, or people will see through that. You've told so many people how much you despise Vince McMahon. You gotta be fair. You got to give the devil his dues. And right. Whether we don't like him or we don't, even the XFL that he did, he made money on. Even though it was a flop, he made money on it. So yeah. You can't take that away from the guy. And so he would go back and rewrite it. And of course, then his wife did all the punctuation and all of that stuff. But I've got that, and I know the last chapter, what he wanted to work on, because, Vince there for a long time prided about how he made movie stars out of his guys, Thunder Lips, and this guy was in the movies, and well, I got news for him. Terry Funk was in movies way before Vince McMahon probably knew how to wipe his own butt. Paradise Alley, Roadhouse, things like that. There was all kinds of those guys back in the day that was in movies. Vince didn't make wrestlers and the movie stars. And then Larry wanted to talk about, because Vince was, oh man, everywhere we go, nobody else has ever sold out arenas. Well, the last chapter was going to be also part of how Stanton, because I got all the results of the sellouts, what the sellouts were, what the house pays were. Yeah, what the bill, how much they brought in. So I got all that. So he was going to put in there that, back in 19 such and such, 12,500 people attended a match at Kiel Auditorium between so and so. And I hopefully I will get that done. I promised Pat, and her and I talk about it frequently, that I'm going to finish that last chapter, have her read it, and make sure the punctuation is correct, and we'll self-publish it. And then she can go around and sign some autographs and stuff like that with it. But
That's
so
all.
the rumor you heard was true. There is a book, and there is a chapter, or a volume 13, that has been out there that I just, if I could put a few more hours in the day somehow, I'd get that done.
Jack.
Probably not till after May 13th, though.
Yeah, that's about right. Nate,
Yeah.
you're right. That's like I said, the logistics on something like this is, and Jim and Bobby can tell you that even after all these years, I still worry, because I want everything to go good. I want the fans to come out, and there's the good shows and there's the bad shows. I gotta say that the good has outweighed the bad in 50 years, as far as making sure that everything goes, knock on wood, no incidents. That's why when you have, and I say, I'm always leery when I bring guys in for the first time, because you don't know them. But when guys call and say, hey, I'd like to come to work for your company, what do I got to do? Well, send me some video, send me some photos. And most of all, how did you find out about me? And if you tell me the right things, then that's kind of the foot in the door. Then I say, well, how long have you been trained? Who trained you? Now, if you tell me, well, I've jumped off a couple of garages onto mattresses, then I say, well, here's Harley Race's training academy, or here's Dory Funk Jr.'s training academy. Or back in the day, go up and see Killer Kowalski at his training school. And then come back and talk to me. When somebody calls and tells me that they've been to a legitimate training school, whether it be Dr. Tom Pritchard and people like that, that's a good way to get your foot in the door. Or if you've been to the Ace Wrestling Academy, you really got your foot in the door.
So
You heard it here, guys. If you want your foot in the door above everybody else, have Jim train you.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, and the thing is, Gary comes over periodically. He hasn't been over in a while, but he told me tonight he's going to try to start getting back over there. And I know Bobby's got it on his schedule to do that, because I think what that does then, and Jim can tell you, Jim, the big burly guy, can get in there and show him how to do all of that stuff. But then all of a sudden, here comes a Bobby D who's got that amateur back. And now all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. Now I'm going to learn two things now. So now you have just improved.
Yep.
Now you can hang with the best of them. And so I think that's going to be another, Bobby can get over there and pitch in. And, I'll give you an example. The gentleman we brought in last month, Kyle Hawks, does the Savage Kyle Hawks. I've talked to him. I've had 2 messages from him this week. And again, I mean, he's legit to the fact that he wants to work for us. In fact, the first thing he said is, I was told that I got to come in and prove myself. And I said, yeah.
I did one quick set back in the 80s when I was started becoming a fan and watching. You would always see the guys and they get up on the corner and the crowd would be involved and they would count. But I haven't seen that anything since until Bobby D was doing it on the February 11th show and the crowd getting involved. That's when I was scanning over because I haven't seen that since the 80s.
Yeah.
Where the crowd getting involved and Bobby Slam. I even made a short out of it and posted it everywhere.
That's great.
That's something I haven't seen. It just has not been out there, but fan involvement.
Well, and that's what I've tried to. We were down there and at Leland Race's show last Sunday night or Saturday, and some of them guys were down there. Were doing the airplane spin, Bobby, like you've done in the past. Things like that, and you can just hear the crowd go, "Oh my gosh, I haven't seen that forever." And that's what I think. If some guys would get back to and bring those memories back, you hook those fans just like you get a big old catfish on your hook, and they want to see that, or the abdominal stretch or the reverse rolling cradle, holds like that. I mean, how many matches do you see now that ends in a submission hold? None.
Yeah.
Very seldom. And back in the day, that's what it was. Or everybody kicks out. Nobody kicks out on a count of one. It's always a count of two, and And I hate that when a match is going for the first 2, 3, 4 minutes and somebody goes for a pin and the guy takes a 2 count. If you're that wore out that you can't get out before even a 1 count.
Well, there might be a match ending in a submission next week on TV. Glenn said he perfected that figure 4 and he's going to use it on me, so we'll have to watch and see.
Yeah, Glenn,
I think
the rookie of the year.
Yeah. Did you see the short I did where I was teasing him a bit?
Yeah. And I got to say, I went to the post office this week, and there's some more cards in there addressed to him. So I don't know what the heck he's doing, if he's mailing them or what. I don't know, but
Could be.
I'll bring them to him.
I say he's full of something, but I mean he's charismatic. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought even in the short at the very end, it goes quick because I have to keep it to a minute. But I gave him his props for doing what he does. But it is funny.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of crowd involvement. They don't like him a lot.
Well, and he's doing his job. I mean,
Yeah.
You got to give him credit, So, but that works. I mean, the recording is good. And it's like our TV show. I watch our numbers on that, our social media show. And, I can tell if there's something on television, regular television at night, because our numbers will be kind of low. But then throughout the week, people go back and watch it. And then all of a sudden, you jump up to 1,000 or 2. So I don't get too excited about that. I'll take.
We do it because we love it. So
yeah.
And we have fun.
And it's good to sit back and believe me, there's a lot of people that they'll watch this and they'll watch that. And that's kind of like on our Sunday night show when we do a classic, we'll put that in at different times during the month, because if I put it on at the beginning, some people only want to watch the classic, They if I put it at the end, then they're going to watch everything and, up to that point, especially when it's premiering. But, Jim, did you hear us yet? Yeah, there's something wrong with his. But
he can hear, he just can't.
We can't hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I appreciate you guys, what you're doing, because I think it's definitely helping. I think the word gets out there, and the more you do it, the more people will start to following it. And I think, you come into the matches and interviewing some of the fans, and that word will spread. They like seeing.
We're going to do it every time. I'll be there every Saturday when we're at the fairground. So.
Yeah, they like seeing.
Pulling them in more and more.
they like seeing themselves on camera and then and talking to them and then like I said, you may even get to where you interview a few more of the wrestlers and throwing that on there. Gary Jackson would be a good one to get on. You guys
He's got some great stories.
You guys have some good time with Gary. And again, I mean that's what you do. It just tell the stories because Gary's been everywhere and worked with a lot of guys and he's probably a guy in the area that you'll never hear anybody say anything bad about. I say all the time, if you don't have Gary Jackson in your locker room, then okay. I know they got rid of him at one place, and that's shame on them.
Now
In
he's
fact-
part of the best tag team there is.
Yeah, in fact, they got rid of a few other people. So, but
That story was told.
Yeah, we told that story.
yeah, Gary will do a good job. But I really
Yeah.
appreciate you guys doing it and having me on tonight.
We
Thank
appreciate
you for
having
coming
you.
on.
I hope I didn't bore you too much with some of them stories, but
Not at all by now. Usually Bobby's starting to fall asleep in his chair, but he's been wide awake this whole time.
well, you got to get up early too, don't you? You work tomorrow or today?
Yeah, my alarm goes off in about 3 hours.
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy. Well, listen, I really appreciate you guys, and like I said, if I can help do anything, let me know.
Will do.
Appreciate having you, Herb.
Hi guys. Good
Hey,
night.
Rich, come in. All right, good night.
Good.
Take care. Bye bye.